It's a question many fans have been asking for weeks, and now we might just be standing on the border of a change that could be coming.
Our Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. We're free and available everywhere that you get your podcast and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel. Follow us too to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. I'm Alex Frank, your host each and every day, right here on Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Uh-oh. Really? Are we now? Yeah, hopefully history's made. Look how good this song is. Right now, make you believe. Yeah, it is. It's going to go down. Yeah, Russ, I think there are some loud conversations, or it's certainly the possibility is growing louder and louder as we progress throughout this week. If I didn't introduce my guest, you know him, Russ Heltman, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated, joining me today as he does every Thursday. Russ, straight up, everybody's asking about it, and everybody's talking about it. Will there be a change at quarterback on Saturday for the Cincinnati Bearcats?
I don't even know that the coaching staff knows as of today. We have a quote from Luke Fickell during his first press conference coming off the bye week last week. Obviously, the team was off, and glad to be back once again on Locked On Bearcats. Love being on here as always. Quote from Fickell here: Ben has been able to get back to practice through some of the concussion protocol stuff. Keyword there, Alex, being some. So obviously, that does not lead me to believe, and we did not get a definitive answer from Fickell that he has been cleared from the concussion protocol. Obviously took that hit on the slide against South Florida a couple weeks back. And to me, I mean, that's got to be a little concerning. I mean, just looking at Ben Bryant's health in general, you'd usually like to see guys, if it's a mild concussion, be cleared after a week's time. That was not definitively stated by Luke Fickell. Maybe he's playing coy with SMU. They obviously don't have to release injury reports in college football like they have to do weekly and daily during the practice schedule at the NFL level. So I would say I'd be a little surprised if Evan Prater gets the start for a concussed Ben Bryant this weekend, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And what an opportunity that would be for Evan Prater, Alex, to get his first start in arguably one of the three biggest games on the schedule in the AAC this season for UC.
Well, I mean, definitely with the two road games this week, and then you've got all of a sudden now a potential top 25 matchup on Black Friday when we're still trying to work off the Thanksgiving meals that we eat. So there is, and now I think a lot of us are starting to think some hypothetical scenarios. Well, if Evan Prater starts this week and he plays well, does that mean he starts next week at UCF? In that hostile environment? You know, if Ben Bryant starts this week and he gets concussed and Evan Prater comes in and he performs well, you know, what does that do? I mean, Russ, I'm thinking about it last night. We got a 5-1 football team that's ranked number 21 in the country, and they're, you know, outside of losing to Arkansas, pretty much doing what they did last year and the year before that. But now a quarterback, I don't want to say controversy, but some a situation where you may not know who the starting quarterback definitively is. Is that where we could be heading?
I don't think so. Once again, I'm going to come on here and make it clear. Ben Bryant is the starter. He will play I think Evan Prater could come out, throw for 350 yards, 120 yards rushing, touch the ball 45 times, make up 6 total touchdowns, and they will still give the keys back to Ben Bryant once he is cleared for play. It's just the way this coaching staff has operated. I don't think they want to even hear or give any credence to a quarterback controversy. And the only reason we're even talking about this is because of that slide that Ben Bryant took in the game against South Florida, this would be a non-issue, I would think, if he was obviously able to practice fully and not concussed. So I don't think there's really any scenario where a one-game performance from Evan Prater makes the coaching staff say, yep, all right, we need to scrap everything that we've done so well so far this season on offense and go to Evan Prater and come up with a completely new playbook to use for him.
Bearcats and SMU Saturday noon kickoff on ESPN. Really excited about that. I was telling Russ before we came on, the commentating crew for that game is really, really good. Mark Jones, I've met Mark Jones before, very nice guy. Has a great, great voice. RG3, we know a little bit about RG3, former Heisman Trophy winner. The Bengals did beat the Washington, well, now the Commanders. I won't say what their team name was at that time, in his home opener. So Mark Jones, RG3, and then Quinn Kessenich. So good commentating crew. Of course, you can also listen to the game live on 700 WLW. Dan Horde, Jim Kelly Jr., and starting at 11:30. So you say that you don't know if you think the coaching staff doesn't know. But if you're
he has not been cleared to play publicly to us, so we don't know whether it could be in the hands of the doctors right now, or like I said, it could be a classic case of college coaches playing coy, not wanting to give SMU. Clearly, in that scenario, if you're having to prepare for two different quarterbacks, that's something you'd want your opponent to have to do.
Yeah, interesting, because I remember when Ben Bryant made his first career start for the Bearcats. We didn't know until, at least I didn't know, and I think a lot of us didn't know until the day of the game at Memphis. You remember this, Russ, Black Friday. Desmond Ridder was hurt, and Luke Fickell wouldn't commit to a starter at his Tuesday press conference that week. Ultimately, Ben Bryant got the start, which, he turned in a very fine performance that kept the Bearcats in the game, gave them a chance to win that game. So it's kind of interesting when you think about this scenario where, the last time the Bearcats had a starting quarterback who wasn't healthy going into a game, and we didn't know until right before kickoff. Well, that could be the case this time around. But Russ, if you're calling it, who would you say is going to start this week? And I think you're leaning towards Ben Bryant.
I would say
right?
Bryant, because Fickell made a point to say he has been at practice. He has been practicing. Obviously, you're wearing a red jersey as a quarterback. It's not too taxing to be out there on a practice field in terms of what you're going to do to further exacerbate a concussion injury. I mean, I don't think there's any scenarios in practice, concussion or not, that Ben Bryant's going to be taking licks. So it's all up in the air, I think. And once again, you bring up a great point there with the Memphis game, and a game that Ben Bryant had to come in relief for Desmond Ridder and ailing Desmond Ridder there. I see a similar scenario playing out here. I don't think we're going to have a definitive answer on who is taking snaps at the quarterback position this weekend until 10:30, 11 a.m. on Saturday.
I mean, that's the way this team operates. They don't want to disclose any information. They want to make it more difficult on the opponent, and by byproduct of that, more difficult on us as fans and those who covered the team. So there you go. So the Bearcats are 5-1. They're ranked number 21 to start the second half of the season. Russ, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy should Bearcats fans be about where this team is right now?
I'd say about an 8.5, I'd think. They're not a dominant program right now at 5-1. The defense has been very good. That's been the strength of the team, obviously. It's not quite dominant national level like it was last year, but it's a top 20, top 25 unit. And then offensively, things have kind of slowly, not necessarily tailed off completely, but the consistency has dropped off a little bit when you look at the past two games against Tulsa and South Florida there. So the fact that they are 5-1, you're 2-0 in the AAC, you control your destiny in terms of getting back to a New Year's Six bowl. We saw what Coastal Carolina looked like this past weekend. There is no other Group of 5 conference that will be, I think, putting a contender in the ether for that or that New Year's Six bowl bid outside of the AAC. So I would say an 8.5. And once again, if you're going to get in that 90% range, going to get in that A total range, then you have to be undefeated in my eyes, because that's the standard this team has set.
Our colleague Justin Williams, I was reading a piece he wrote yesterday, mid-season.
I was going to bring that up in the show.
Yeah. And Justin talked about, Russ, how, the Bearcats could maybe even afford to lose a game before they play for a conference championship potentially still and win that conference championship game. And they could still, with 2 losses, go to a New Year's Six Bowl. That's how 2019 played out. If the Bearcats had beaten Memphis, I think they would have gone to the Cotton Bowl that year with 2 losses. They would have been 11-2. Now, obviously, we don't want them to lose a game, and there's a chance they may not. But for me, I go a 9 with how happy I am about the Bearcats. I'm not going to say 10. I'm not going to say 9.5, 9.2, or 9.01. What I'm going to say is 9 because considering this team lost 9 players to the NFL draft, considering they have dealt with more injuries than I think people realize, Russ. I said this yesterday. You've lost Malik Vann, your senior leader up front on defense. You've lost Will Pauling, so that's a hit to the depth in the receiver room, which might be tested this week if Tyler Scott can't go. You lost Arquan Bush for a game. He did come back against South Florida, but that's a veteran corner at a position that's undergoing still a major change, considering what they had last year. By the way, Sauce Gardner might be Defensive Rookie of the Year, maybe Defensive Player of the Year.
Nelly, that cheesehead
was looking good. You know what? And let me tell you something. And I'll deviate. I'll talk about Sauce Gardner for a few seconds here. Who said this? I think Good Morning Football said this. When you're a franchise in the Jets, for the last, 10 years, really since you last played in the Super Bowl, which, fun fact, was before a man was put on the moon, you've been defined by the butt fumble. You've been defined by, what else have you been defined by? Pretty much that.
I mean, can't wait. We'll give him the Bart Scott quote. That's a definitive New York Jets moment.
Can't wait.
Yeah, that's a definitive. We'll give him a positive one on that end.
I want to like Bart Scott, but I can't after what he said about the Bengals and Joe Burrow last year. But anyway, now you've got your first round draft pick wearing a cheesehead in full uniform at Lambeau Field. Russ Heltman, that is our guy. Sauce. I mean, yeah, it would have been great if he has a good, solid NFL career. He might be the Defensive Player of the Year.
It's true. It is 100% true. He's the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's been a top 6 to 10 cornerback in the league so far this season. I don't think, are surprised. I am not surprised at how well he's played. And I knew it was kind of stapled into my take on Sauce Gardner and his NFL career when Robert Saleh, a really great defensive mind in this league, was asked about Sauce Gardner, told the media he was going to start in August, and he said, you could just see it on his face. He's like, this guy, I don't have much else to teach this guy. He's that good. He's that polished, and he's that much of a pro. Now, that's obviously not something that Saleh said, but you could just tell from his body language, his face, we got an absolute steal, and the Houston Texans might be thinking twice down the line of taking Derek Stingley over Sauce Gardner. That was so much fun to watch this weekend. I loved it. And it was fun asking I asked Juwan Briggs about it yesterday. A couple of the players were asked during the press conference, and you could just see it. It's so infectious, the amount of joy that Sauce brings, and it's dribbling all the way down into this current Bearcats team.
If you're a former Bearcat, you had a great week in the NFL. Alec Pierce game-winning touchdown against the Jaguars. Myjai Sanders' first career sack. Kobe Bryant leads the league in forced fumbles, and Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end maybe to ever play the game of football. So,
right. It was the week started with Travis Kelce catching 4 touchdown passes and amassing the fewest yards in the history of a 4 touchdown catch game. So, now we're talking about former Bearcats. That's how we do it here. And by the way, what I love the most about Sauce Gardner was after the game. I didn't know who he was talking to on the field after the game, but he said, "Yeah, I've been doubting my whole life. So keep doubting me. I'll just keep proving myself." Very humble. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I mean, let's not forget, he comes into UC, 6 foot, 150 pounds, pick 6 against South Florida. Oh, who's this guy? Dan Hort. His nickname is Sauce. Oh, boy, did that catch on. And his cornerbacks coach, similar to Luke Fickell, said he wouldn't call Sauce by a nickname until he won an award. Picks up NFL Rookie of the Week last week. Gets the Sauce moniker from his coach.
How about that? Anyway, kind of deviated there. That's a fun though. That's what we do here on this show. Anyway, so we talked about expectations at the beginning of the year. Are those much the same now for you, Russ, as we head into the second half of the season?
Yeah, the expectations haven't changed. I think it was unfair for anyone to expect a return to the college football playoff this year. Obviously, there's so many things out of UC's control and that type of expectation. But what is in their control and still in their control, as you laid out over the last 15 minutes, they still have that New Year's Six bid right on the table. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers fall to 6-1 this past weekend. They lose to Old Dominion 49-21. I mean, that's, to me, is too much of a hill to climb when you look at who ends up getting that bid down the line for the College Football Playoff Rankings Committee. And Old Dominion, the only other Group of 5 team undefeated right now, they can't play in the postseason, Alex, because they are in their first year of eligibility as an FBS school. So all of the goals are still there, and there's honestly a little bit of breathing room on those goals. As you mentioned, I think they could go 10-2, 11-2. Obviously, you got to win the conference championship game to get to that New Year's Six bid and still make it, because they could end up having 2 ranked wins on their schedule or 2 ranked opponents on their schedule when they play them, in UCF and Tulane, who obviously Tulane ranked for the first time since, I believe, 1998 in this week's latest poll. They're at 6-1, and then UCF, 1 loss as well. And I would say, Alex, if they go out and handle business this weekend, win by double digits, then, and even win it all, they probably will be sneaking in, or at least in the top 30, getting a good amount of votes.
So, how old are you, Russ? Just out of curiosity.
25, big 2-5.
Okay. So you time Tulane was ranked. I don't know if I was, because I was born in November of 98.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the exact week that they got ranked, but that was the what was it? That was the year they went undefeated, right? When Tulane was last ranked?
It was. Now I think Tennessee.
Sean King was the quarterback. Sean King.
And Tennessee won the national championship. So naturally, I go to New Orleans for the first time this week, and Tulane gets ranked in the top 25 for the first time since I was born in 1998. I mean, how does that work? They should be sending me unlimited supply of gumbo for yeah. That's what they should be doing. By the way, I had gumbo for the first time, Russ, this weekend. Woo, that was good.
What's the rating out of 10? Let's get a rating. So if we're doing ratings this episode,
I'll go 9, because I can't ever say, okay, it's hard for me to say 10 out of 10. Because I'll be honest, because I got a spice caught in my throat, and that was a fun 10 minutes.
That's tough.
But excuse me, but I cleared it, went back for seconds, and they brought the bread out at this. I was at a place called Drago's, which, fun fact, is owned by the play-by-play voice of the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh.
So recommendation from Dan Horde on his podcast, Bengals Booth Podcast. So very, very good time in New Orleans. Very festive. Bourbon Street is as advertised, and I'm pretty sure my head is still ringing from how loud the Superdome is.
I bet it was a crazy environment there. Glad the Bengals got the job done. But
yes.
Yeah, back to the Bearcats. I don't think the expectations have really changed in terms of the fan base, in terms of the team, and if anything, the margins have just, I think, widened a little bit. Although you can only afford, I would say, 1 more loss the rest of the season, and even then, do you think they could get in with 2 losses, Alex, into the AAC
I think
title
they could.
game? I don't know.
I do, and I just think, Russ, because
2 conference losses, that is, not
2 conference losses. No.
Okay, yeah.
Because well, then you'd be 9-3, 10-3. No, you won't get to a New Year's Six bowl with that. If you go 11-2, I think you should get in. Because what other Group of 5 team is better? That's
what I said. Coastal Carolina. I mean,
yeah,
they're going to have 1 loss or 2. If they have 1 loss the rest of the year, maybe the playoff committee.
I wouldn't even put them in.
Coastal Carolina over, but UC's one of their only losses is going to be to that Arkansas team.
Yes,
who is obviously not as good as we thought they might be this year.
But it's still SEC.
Yeah, it's still SEC.
I'll take that over Old Dominion.
Right, a 28-point loss to a first-year FBS school.
To me, Russ, it's Coastal Carolina doesn't have the pedigree that Cincinnati has had for the previous 3 years. I think that should factor in. Excuse me. And let's be honest, right? Tulane's a great story. I don't think they can sustain their success. They're really good defensively. They have a good passing game, but they still have UCF, SMU, and Cincinnati. Brutal, right? Brutal. And by the way, that's in Orlando. They play UCF. So I think Cincinnati, if anything, if they're going to lose a game, which they may not, losing to UCF, okay, fine. You lose on the road to that team who will then probably be ranked, fine. Go into their stadium and beat them in the AAC championship game. That should get you into a New Year's Six Bowl. The Bearcats are going to be Tulane at home. Let's be honest. Because Tulane is going to have to travel on a short week. Time change. Bearcats are at home. Senior day. No way the Bearcats are losing to Tulane at home. All right. This is the latest I've ever done a first live read of the show. But, I mean, that's because this conversation has been going so great. Maybe it's Russ's new ring light. I think that might be what it is. Anyway, or maybe it's because I used this new product that is absolutely amazing. I have to tell you about it. It's called Sweat Block because let's be honest, I've had sweat for many occasions. Hell, I sweated in New Orleans during the Bengals game. I sweat during every Bengals game, during every Bearcats game, at work, when I sleep. Take my guy Chris. He suffered from excessive underarm sweat for 10 years. He was so worried about sweating through his dress shirts that he started tucking maxi pads in his shirt to soak up the sweat until he found Sweat Block. And let me tell you why it changed the game for him and for me. Because it was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. That's all you need to know. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block. Save 20% with my promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Russ Heltman, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated, back with me today here on Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this game on Saturday against SMU, SMU's 3-3. They're 1-1 in conference play. They've lost 3 of their previous 4 games. They have a horse who pooped on the field last week. That was quite funny. What stands out to you about this SMU team, and what are the Bearcats going to be able to do against them, and what worries you about SMU?
Well, Rashee Rice is the number one concern I have for this Bearcats defense right now. And he's I would say the odds-on favorite to win AAC Offensive Player of the Year. Leading receiver for the SMU Mustangs has been fantastic so far this season. 49 catches, 761 yards, 4 touchdowns. Top 5 in the country in receptions or in yards total on the season. And his connection with Tanner Mordecai is really, really special. And it's the number one thing that the Bearcats are going to have to slow down to exit Dallas with a victory here. Tanner Mordecai, another one of those great AAC passing talents, 2,016 yards on the season thus far. He is 11th nationally in passing, 22nd in touchdown throws, has only tossed 6 interceptions. So he's in the bottom third nationally in total interceptions. Very efficient with the football, 43rd quarterback rating by ESPN overall in the country. So it's that connection, Tanner Mordecai to Rashee Rice. If they can shut that down, turn SMU into more of a kind of balanced team. They love to throw the ball a lot. Make them have to run the football a little bit more than the Bearcats and that front 7 that is playing really great football right now. And hopefully a little bit healthier front 7, i.e. Ivan Pace Jr. and his little ding up that he was dealing with before the bye can start to shut down that SMU rushing attack that only averages about 138.5 yards per game and leading rusher hovering around 4 to 4.3 yards per carry. Not necessarily going to wow you with their efficiency.
Toting yards. That's Trey Siggers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're right. I mean, Rashay, is it Rashee or Rashay? I've always thought it was Rashay. I could be wrong, though.
I'm going to be honest with the audience and with Alex right here. I got no idea. I just went with Rashee Rice.
Okay.
Rashee Rice. Sounds nice.
Russ, you look at their stats. It's Rashee Rice who's got 49 catches, almost 800 yards, and the next closest receiver has maybe 300.
Jake Bailey is the next closest receiver with 12 catches for 205 yards.
There you go.
It's no. There you go. there's no surprise where the ball is going between Terry
So
Mordecai
this
and
is like
Shea Rice.
so this is like Michael Thomas with the Saints years ago, where he had all the catches and the next closest receiver had maybe 60. That's excuse me, that's where we're going here. So if you take away Shea Rice, which the Bearcats did a good job of the last 2 years, they essentially have no offense. And like this SMU offense is high octane. I mean, they average over 400 yards of offense for a reason, but the Bearcats last year held them to 196 on senior day. So this is an interesting game because it's a noon kickoff here, but 11 o'clock in Dallas. Do those start times affect teams, and could it affect the Bearcats in any way, especially coming out of the bye week?
I don't think so. I don't think it has really any difference. Actually, Ty Van Fossen said it's a benefit for the Bearcats. He said him and a lot of guys hate waiting around, especially on the road when they can't just be at their own apartment, be at the stadium at Nippert getting ready in their own home routine. He loves early kickoff of road games. He says the team just wants to wake up, strap on the pads, go play some football, and then get back home to Cincinnati. And I could kind of see where that would lend a benefit to the Bearcats, this game being kicked off at noon, as opposed to last road game in the AAC when they had to wait all day long to go face the Tulsa Golden Hurricane.
Yeah, and then deal with, what, a 4-hour game on ESPNU? I mean, Russ, over-under, how long does it take to play this game? I'll go 3.5. I'll set the over-under at 3.5. You're going over or under that?
I'm going over. It's a UC ESPN game in the AAC. It's probably going to be about 3:45. I don't think it will be 4 hours though. I would be very shocked. Usually, if it's on ESPN and it's the noon game, they typically keep those ones going so that the rest of the slate doesn't get completely.
Well, it'll start later because College Game Day runs over now.
True.
So
they'll get it done whenever. We know where we're going to be on Saturday.
But at least that means an early work day for us.
Right.
Because
one other nugget I wanted to squeeze in here in case we didn't get to it at all. Tyler Scott, another big injury that we're looking at here this week. Obviously went down in the game against South Florida and didn't see him on the practice field yesterday. Was off on the side on the rehab section, kind of working on the speed bike. So don't know if he's going to get any legit practice time. I don't know if he has to get legit practice time in this week to be able to play. But that's an update on Tyler Scott, who definitively is not back to full practice as of yet.
That's a big concern for me because if he's not 100% and that ankle, and we've seen it the last few weeks with T. Higgins with the Bengals, and you know Tyler Scott, what he loves to do the most is fly down the field. Excuse me. So that's concerning to me. But I also think that this game, the Bearcats, Russ, should run the football well because SMU struggles in the run game defensively.
Struggles to say the least. 0.181 EPA per rush allowed on defense. That is bottom 12 nationally among all 100, or bottom 11 nationally among all 131 FBS teams. They are a team you have to be able to run the football on. You should really run the football well on. I don't think there should be any bad carry stretches for the Bearcats this weekend. 5, 6, 7 yards a carry as a team is what they should average. Feed Charles McClellan. Feed Corey Kiner, who is back this week, confirmed by Luke Fickell.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, Alex, kind of bringing it full circle to the top of the show, this is a week where if Ben Bryant isn't fully healthy, and obviously they're not going to clear him if he's not fully healthy off a concussion, but given the matchup, this is a great place to use Evan Prater's legs.
Yes. So you're saying the Bearcats should rush for 200 yards in this game, maybe more than that.
Yes.
Okay.
That should be the bar to clear us 200.
We're going to switch gears and talk some hoops in the third segment. So we'll wrap up our conversation. Bearcats SMU. Your score prediction for Saturday?
I'm rolling 30-27 Bearcats. They hit the spread right on the number. We get a pretty close game, and unfortunately for my writing pros, it's going to be one that comes down to the wire. Maybe I'm going to guess it here. Ryan Coey, first game winner as a Bearcat, happens this weekend. It's going to be a nip-tuck battle, hard-fought one on the road that the Bearcats barely squeak away from. 30-27 at the gun.
It's SMU's homecoming. Bearcats have beaten the Mustangs 90-27 combined the last 2 years. So hoping for more success this year. All right, we'll get this live read-in from Bet Online, our friends over there, and then we'll talk some hoops. And then we'll talk about, just maybe, Russ, the Bengals offense starting to round into form, potentially. And Uno finally playing like a numero uno receiver in the NFL. All right, we'll get into that after a word from Bet Online. As you see on your screen, betonline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. Excuse me, I was trying to hold that in. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Russ Heltman, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated, back with us today here on Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we are, 18 days away from the first men's basketball game of the season. You, I'm sure, will be covering that for us at AllBearcats as the Bearcats take on Chaminade. Yep. That is, by the way, I've said this before, the host of the Maui Invitational, which the Bearcats will be playing in just a matter of – that is – Russ, that's in 4 weeks. Right.
It's a month away.
No, it's not. So, by the way, great article I read Tuesday night in The Athletic. Russ, you should check this out. You subscribe to The Athletic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, there you go. But you and Justin being Ohio buddies, I don't doubt that. So there's an article that Seth Davis wrote of the 20 most influential games of the 2000s.
Yep.
Really interesting choices that made the list. I thought number 1 was too mainstream. I would have done something different. You can check it out for yourself. Cincinnati does have a game on the list, but for reasons you'd rather not remember. I'll leave it at that. So, speaking of basketball, the Bearcats held their media days on Tuesday. Russ, you were there. Wes Miller spoke. David DeJulius spoke. John Newman III spoke. Am I right about that?
Yesterday was DeJulius and Rob Fennessy. And then it was last week they had their formal media day, and then I think this is kind of just going to be the weekly staple in the preseason until they get the regular season started.
I don't know. Yeah, this is what you get when you lived in the Deep South and make it. Well, actually, make it
the
Deep South. I don't know. I was in the Deep South last week. That was quite an experience. And I mean that for all very good reasons. Anyway. Those grits I had at breakfast 2 days in a row. So good. Anyway, Wes Miller talked about offensively, they want to be positionless. What do you take from that?
I take a kind of breakthrough into the modern game. Last year, it was very traditional. You know, you obviously have the 2 leading active shot blockers at the time in the entire country, in Hayden Koval and Abdul Adu. Miller talked about how there was a lot of times where on defense, they kind of knew that they had that back line defender in Adu or Koval to rely on at the rim. And this year, they don't have that. And so what we were able to see, and really awesome experience, getting to see a full 2.5 hour practice yesterday, just being a fly on the wall, seeing how the team operates. It is just the intensity that they are practicing this defensive structure with right now is really, really impressive. The intensity the coaching staff has, especially Miller, they are really tightening up the screws on this defense. It's going to be a lot of help side defense. It's going to be a lot of kind of communication-based principles where you're having to switch off defenders, you're having to switch off guys quickly, you're having to pass off assignments, and really be on the same page 1 through 5 every time you're out there on the floor, as opposed to letting a guy like Abdul Adu, letting a guy like Hayden Koval be that main rover in the middle and erase stuff at the rim. This year's defense, more about, I would say, denying angles to the rim, denying those pathways to the rim with your positionless, more versatile, more athletic lineups that you have in 2022 as opposed to 2021.
So, wow, excuse me. And that's all great to hear. I posed this question to you last week, and I'm going to ask it this week. Between David DeJulius, who I don't know how you can love that guy, after what he said and what he's going to do with his NIL earnings, and then you have Jeremiah Davenport. Which one is A, the leader of this team, and B, the most valuable player on this team?
Of those two, I think it's Davenport because it's the peak. It's the mountaintop time. We kind of know what David DeJulius is. It's not that he can't keep improving incrementally here or there, but if you're Jeremiah Davenport, being in this offseason program, a staple offseason program for the first time in almost 2 years that you've been able to actually get a full-fledged non-COVID, non-pandemic offseason in, you're a hometown Cincinnati kid. You've stuck through a coaching change. You've stuck through everything. You've gone through the maturation process over the last 12 months that Wes Miller has described in multiple conversations with the media over the past few weeks. The time is now. And last year, sure, the scoring was there here and there. It was solid offensively, but defensively is where he really lacked. The wings across the AAC would just target Jeremiah Davenport in the half court and just go right at him. This year, the fulcrum of this team is going to be its defense. And I think Wes Miller obviously knows that. He prides his entire program status and structure off of having an elite defense, one that they didn't have last year. We're top 50 in defensive efficiency for most of the season until that 8 of 10 loss stretch in the final month and a half of the season that really sealed their fate in 2021, 2022, and kept them outside the top 70 in total defensive efficiency. So Jeremiah Davenport is the fulcrum. He's the skeleton key, I think, towards this starting defensive unit really being able to shut down the great wings we're going to see across the AAC schedule over the next 3 to 4 months. So to me, Jeremiah Davenport having a big year is more important for this team than David DeJulius having a big year. A guy in the latter who I could see the production falling off just a tad, the raw numbers falling off just a tad, but Alex, the efficiency I think should be much higher. The off-ball creation should be much higher from David DeJulius. I don't expect to watch him pound the ball into the end of the shot clock throughout a lot of possessions this year. It's going to be versatile offense. It's going to be ball movement. It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be get out, run the floor, get those easier transition buckets into your shot diet a little bit more than they were able to last year, and really just open up the flow of the offense more. And to do that, Jeremiah Davenport, I think, needs to be the more dominant player out of that duo.
See, that's what I want to see. It's like I felt like last year the Bearcats offense was too predictable. Davenport chucked up a bunch of threes. David DeJulius, I mean, he was great, but it felt like he had to work for everything. Like if you put him in more situations and you use him in different ways, I think that's going to lead to a much more successful offense this season. All right, let's switch gears here because Joe Burrow made a comment last week.
One more nugget on the practice I watched yesterday. Daniel Skillings is making some plays out there, folks. Making some plays. And not just, the flashy jump shooting, the crossover moves, all that stuff, the nitty-gritty stuff that is going to get Wes Miller to play him in this rotation. I would say it's a long shot that any of the freshmen become 20, 25-minute guys, 15, 20-minute guys, at least in the non-conference slate. But Daniel Skillings, I would say, of the three freshmen, is the leader in the clubhouse right now to see significant playing time. He looked really good yesterday in that practice.
How about that? Well, that could be something if we get to see him out there. All right. So, I like to ask you a Bengals question or two at the end of every show that we do. So Joe Burrow made a comment last week. He said, we're going to go down to New Orleans and we're going to fight our balls off to win. All right. You want to know how I know that? He did. Touchdown run on 3rd and 8 late in the second quarter. 3rd and 4, the Houdini Patrick Mahomes-esque play to give the Bengals a fighting chance to cut into the deficit.
That was the 3rd and 3 to Tyler Boyd, right?
Okay, yes. Yeah. Which that was stressful watching it from my vantage point in the Superdome as my head was ringing because of how loud it is. What was really cool, Russ, I don't know. So what was really cool about that game was, the Saints have this terribly copycatted version of the Who Dey chant that goes, "Who dat thinking to beat them Saints?" So right before kickoff, you had Saints fans doing that, and you had Bengals fans doing the Who Dey chant, and we're trying to outduel each other. I mean, it was an incredible pregame pageantry, like dueling chants.
I'm sure there's a video
the
somewhere
Superdome
on Twitter. I'm going to have to look that up.
I haven't seen one yet, and I kind of want to. But anyway, so for the first, I really feel like Joe Burrow was Joe Burrow for what he said before the game leading up to it, what he did during the game, and putting the team on his back to win the game. And his buddy Jamar, who he's known since LSU days, boy, what a game he had. I think we're starting to see him, Chase, and the team maybe turn a corner. Russ, are you there on that?
The signs of life are there, especially on offense. And it's like as soon as the offense starts to Undertaker itself up out of the coffin, then the defense starts to slip back into the coffin in terms of the run defense. But I'll get to that in just a second. Chase, 6 catches, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Boom, he's back. Made the yak plays all over the place. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu, RIP, man. Whenever he has to face Jamar Chase, it's just an abject disaster for him, even though he's playing pretty good football this year for the New Orleans Saints. I think the connection is there. They obviously kept force-feeding Chase. They ran 52 out of 54 plays from the shotgun. They're implementing more RPO actions, which is fantastic to see out of this offense, Alex, because what does that do? What does being in shotgun all the time and running a heavy RPO-based system with the receiving talent you have do? It puts everything on the shoulders of number 9. The pre-snap ability, the post-snap readability, the idea and the knowledge to know when I need to get the ball out quick on an RPO to Tyler Boyd on a slant or hand the ball off to Joe Mixon, who averaged over 5.5 yards per carry on Sunday. Yeah. All of that stuff I think is good and can be built on. Now, can they run this offense effectively out of the shotgun 98% of the time? That's where I have hesitation in terms of facing NFL defenses and giving them one single look every single play. But if there's anybody that can do it, it's the guy with the brain that number 9 has and the talent offensively that this team has, where if you get those guys in terms of the receivers, yak opportunities in space, we saw what they're going to do with them. And then on the other end, with the defense, 8 to 10 missed tackles, so uncharacteristic for this unit out of Lou Anarumo that has really been stapled in the middle of the league over the last 3 to 4 years in missed tackle total. And Sunday was an abject disaster. They gave up over 100 yards rushing on 3 different plays that basically kept the Saints in the game for the entire time. So clean up the missed tackles against the number 1 rushing DVOA offense in the NFL this coming weekend against Atlanta, and they should be able to cover a spread against the Atlanta team that is 6-0 against the spread so far this season.
6-0 against the spread. This is we talk about that against the spread. Here's what I like too. On the first touchdown drive, when the Bengals had 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal from the 9, Russ, two passes to start. They went into the end zone. They were throwing the ball. Burrow threw the ball into the end zone. Like, great play calling. And then the Mixon play, I watched the video of it afterwards. Jamar Chase took the corner defensive player with him that allowed Mixon to run underneath. So, I was throwing short of the goal line, but it's a high percentage throw that can lead to yards after the catch. So I had no problem with that throw. I thought the play calling was good. I thought La'el Collins played a really good game. Hayden Hurst continues to be so reliable and such a hard player. And just for the first time all season, I came away after a win thinking, okay, you can really build off of. What do you like on Sunday against the Falcons team that, let's admit, is now a tougher opponent than we thought coming into the season?
No doubt. I honestly thought Desmond Ridder would be taking the reins from Marcus Mariota by this point. And the way Marcus Mariota's passed the ball would lead you to believe that. But Arthur Smith is leaning into what his offense and what his quarterback does best. He's given Mariota about 12 to 15 carries a game. Caleb Huntley, Tyler Allgeier. I mean, it's a mishmash of guys that are creating the, like I mentioned, number 1 most efficient rushing attack in the NFL this year. And it's a game where I think the Bengals are going to continue to have problems. This rush defense is struggling right now without DJ Reader. I think it's going to be another nip-tuck game. I could see it being another 3-point game that the Bengals play at Paul Brown Stadium. Give me Cincinnati 27-24 in that contest. They barely get out over the Atlanta Falcons, but it's kind of crazy, Alex. The Bengals, after the bye, once they go into the bye in week 9, in the first 8 weeks of the season, they'll have faced 5 of the top 6 rushing attacks by DVOA. It's crazy.
I saw you tweet that. But my thing is, the Bengals are facing a lot of weak rushing defenses coming up. Atlanta's middle of the pack. Cleveland's not very good. Carolina's not very good. I'll go
Cleveland's awful. 24. Cleveland, they better be able to run on Cleveland.
Jeez. I'll go 34-24. I just think the offense is starting to click. I think the defense gets a turnover in this game because Atlanta's going to be playing from behind. I think someone steps up and makes a play. I don't think they're going to be that poor against the run. They might give up some yards, but they're not going to miss tackles. You know, I have my eyes on Jermaine Pratt, who had a really good game last week. Excuse me. You know who had a really good game last week? No one talks about him. Jay Tuafele.
Yeah, he was solid. Had to come in on short notice. Josh Tupou, I think, went down early in the contest. Tuafele had to take a way bigger snap diet than he was used to. And, yep, like I mentioned last year, Alex, I told a lot of people, it might have been it might end up stinging a lot to have missed out on that Super Bowl, given how healthy the Cincinnati Bengals were in 2021.
Yeah, but you're going to get Reader back. You're going to get Wilson back. You're healthy on offense.
This is true. These injuries aren't long-term, done for the year. That's a good point.
And Collins is healthy now. Williams is healthy. He played okay on Sunday. That second sack that Burrow took on the second to last drive of the game, woof, to Williams' pass protection. I mean, they're not as healthy as they were last year right now, but keep in mind, they had a lot of injuries last year too at various points in the season.
Right. Logan Wilson was banged up last year. He was
Yeah. All right. Russ Heltman, as always, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated. You can follow him on Twitter at Russ Heltman11. He's a producer and host at WMKV 89.3. He joins me every Thursday to talk Bearcats football, Bearcats men's basketball, and, of course, his always candid takes about the Bengals. Russ, we'll be back next Thursday for what could be a huge game in Orlando, Florida.
Yep. Hopefully Bearcats get the job done this weekend against SMU, and very well could be AAC championship game, home field advantage on the line next weekend at the Bounce House, and you and I will be all over it, Alex. Can't wait to chat about it.
Yep, I'll be covering it from my nice hotel in Clemson, South Carolina. You'll be in Cincinnati. Are you going to the game in Orlando?
No, I'll be in Cincy next weekend.
Okay, you'll be in Cincy. I'll be in Clemson, and we'll give you the content that you deserve. Russ Heltman, thank you as always for joining me. We'll talk to you next week after the Bearcats and SMU Tango, whatever. Saturday in Dallas, and then we'll get you set for Bearcats UCF next Thursday. Russ Heltman, as always, thank you for joining us, and best wishes to you.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
That's Russ Heltman, my colleague at AllBearcats and Sports Illustrated, joining me as he does every Thursday. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_Natty. Don't forget my score prediction and game preview tomorrow here on Locked On Bearcats. You can also follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_. Email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now for your second listen, get more on the Big 12 by making Locked On Big 12 your second listen with everyday host Josh Neighbors and the local experts of Locked On taking you across the conference in 30 minutes. Locked On Big 12, your second listen, that's Locked On Big 12. For Locked On Bearcats, I'm Alex Frank. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will talk to you tomorrow with the full game preview for SMU right here on Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.